Well, with more, we're now joined by Bea Bruske, President of the Canadian Labour Congress. Bea, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So this legislation, this anti-scab legislation, is something that the CLC, you have been fighting for years, and here you have it. Why is it so important to you?
This is really a decades-long culmination of a fight to get this type of legislation in Canada. It is critically important that workers have a strong voice when they get to the bargaining table, and this legislation sets the table as being a balanced bargaining table.
Okay, you say balanced, but there are others, particularly in the business community, who say this actually tips it in favor of labor by essentially making the government a non-neutral arbiter anymore because they're introducing this piece of legislation. What do you say to that?
What I would say is that the only tool workers have to make sure that their demands are being met is to actually withdraw their labor. They can't effectively withdraw their labor if they're going to be replaced by a scab who's going to be taking their place. We've seen record profits over the last number of years. We see a significant affordability crisis in this country, and workers are falling further and further behind. We need to make sure that when we get to bargaining tables, that not just the employees, the workers are ready to bargain seriously, but also that the employer is ready to bargain seriously.
Okay, employer ready to bargain, but I'm going to read you something. This is just one of the many groups that have responded to this introduction now, this tabling. And this is from the Canadian Federation of Labour. They say, quote, if passed, this bill could prolong the duration of strikes and increase their frequency. We've seen it happen in British Columbia and Quebec, where there's already legislation to ban replacement workers and where they have experienced more strikes than any other jurisdictions. Long strikes at ports or rails hurt small businesses, operations, and finances. How do you respond to that?
How I would respond is that workers need to know that when they are making a very difficult choice, that they need to walk a picket line in order to embolden their demands to get a decent and fair wage. They should not have to worry that they're going to be out for months and months and months at a time because somebody is going to be taking their job, because their employer is going to hire a scab. We truly believe that this type of legislation is going to be very impactful in forcing employers to be serious at bargaining tables and to try to find resolutions on day one rather than waiting till day 301. And we see, the Port of Montreal strike that's ongoing and languishing, and it's been well over a year. These are the kinds of strikes that we would like to avoid or to have much more shortened period of time in, because when you can't use scab labor, you have to actually pay attention at the bargaining table, and you have to bring your best selves to try to get a deal.
Okay, although they also will argue, that I've seen already put out there, that basically this legislation takes power away from workers and gives it to individual bargaining units. And because the bargaining units know that they have this legislation, if it is passed, when it is passed, they will go in there far more emboldened, perhaps more than membership.
I think we need to trust the power of workers themselves. Workers ultimately set the goals that they sent their bargaining teams to the bargaining table with, right? There's many consultations that happen with union members well before bargaining starts in terms of what the issues are, what the priorities are. And so workers know what their bargaining team is going to be doing at the bargaining table. Workers vote on what's being brought back to them. And so we should never underestimate what workers' participation is in these things. And I would say that it actually gives workers a greater ability to control their own destiny.
Okay. Now, the bill does have support of both the Liberals and the New Democrats, of course, enough for it to pass. But are there any curveballs that perhaps you're worried about? Because even though it has the support of the two parties, it still has to go through the process on the Hill.
For sure. There is a process that it has to go to, and we'll be very vigilant at shepherding and participating in this bill moving forward and moving through the various different stages. We'll be very active at committee meetings to make sure that our voice is being heard and that we're raising the voice of workers in terms of the priorities for this particular bill. We also want to make sure that this bill happens quickly, that it doesn't take an excessive period of time, because workers have been counting on this for many, many decades, and one day longer is one day too long, and so we need to actually make sure that this gets done in a reasonable period of time.
Okay, you say reasonable period of time. I know you've been in discussions with Jagmeet Singh of the NDP. Has he given any indication to you as to how quickly this might actually go through Parliament?
Well, the number of months that we keep hearing is 18 months, right? And so we're hearing that from the Minister, of course, who tabled the legislation earlier today. And while I understand a need for consultation, we think 18 months is a very long period of time. We'd like to see this happen much quicker. We think that those consultations can happen in a much quicker period of time, and that workers are really relying on this to happen.
Okay, well, we watch the issue. Bea Bruske, thank you for the time.
Thank you so much.